What is she wearing?
On a gray November morning in Chicago, a brilliant woman named Kayla walked into the most important board meeting of her career, clutching campaign materials that proved her exceptional talent. But, along the way to what should have been her promotion, she encountered something that would shatter her world. 5 board members who saw her skin color and body type as liabilities to their company image. Face it, honey, your fat, black face doesn't belong in this company. Janet's words sliced through the Chicago office like a blade as Kayla stood frozen at her desk. What Janet didn't know. What none of them knew. The man walking into the CEO elevator 2 floors above was about to become their worst nightmare. Because sometimes the person you destroy is married to the person who controls your fate. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video and comment where you are watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's continue. The elevator doors slid open on the 42nd floor of the Willis Tower, revealing the polished marble lobby of Henderson & Associates Marketing. 28-year-old Kayla Thompson stepped out, her emerald green blazer bright against her rich brown skin, her natural hair styled in elegant twists that caught the morning light streaming through the windows. She carried herself with quiet grace, though her shoulders held the slight tension of someone bracing for another difficult day. "Morning, Kayla," called Brad from reception, his smile genuine. At 62, he was one of the few people in the office who treated her with consistent respect. His weathered face showed years of witnessing office politics, and his kind eyes held understanding. "Good morning, Brad. How's your grandson's soccer season going?" Kayla's voice was warm, melodious, the kind that could soothe worried clients over the phone. "Won their championship yesterday. Kid's got a scholarship offer already, and he's only 15. Brad's pride glowed as he handed her the usual stack of client files. "You working on the Patterson campaign today?" "That's the plan." Kayla's fingers traced the edges of the folders. The Patterson account was her baby, a community outreach campaign for a local nonprofit that she'd conceptualized from scratch. 3 months of late nights and weekend research had gone into the proposal sitting on her desk. As she walked through the open office space, conversations seemed to dim around her. Janet Murphy, the office queen bee with her platinum blonde hair always perfectly styled, looked up from her corner desk with cold blue eyes. At 35, Janet had mastered the art of workplace manipulation, her tailored navy dress and expensive jewelry marking her territory in the social hierarchy. Well, someone's looking confident today. Janet's voice carried just far enough for others to hear. Her red-painted lips curved into what could generously be called a smile. Kayla kept walking, but her stomach tightened. "Just get to your desk. Do your work. Don't give them anything." Meanwhile, 15 miles away in Lincoln Park, 32-year-old Logan Mitchell stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his silver tie. His reflection showed a tall, athletic man with warm brown eyes and close-cropped hair, his chocolate skin smooth over strong cheekbones. The charcoal gray suit fit him perfectly, custom-tailored, though he'd never mentioned the price to Kayla. Their townhouse was modest but beautifully decorated, filled with Kayla's artwork and plants that somehow thrived under her care. Family photos lined the hallway, their wedding day 2 years ago, both sets of parents, vacations where they'd laughed until their sides hurt. "Baby, you seen my cufflinks?" Logan called out, though he already knew where they were. He loved these small morning interactions, the domestic rhythm they'd built together. "Top drawer, left side, behind the watch case." Kayla's voice drifted from the kitchen where she was packing lunches. Even from upstairs, he could hear her humming, something she only did when she was trying to calm herself. Logan found the platinum cufflinks, a wedding gift from Kayla's father, and slipped them on. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. "Final contracts signed. You're officially CEO effective 9 a.m. board meeting at 10. He'd kept the promotion quiet, even from Kayla. The timing had been sudden, the previous CEO's scandal breaking just as Logan was finishing his MBA at Northwestern. The board's unanimous vote had surprised even him. 3 years of strategic consulting, 2 years building relationships, and now he was the youngest CEO in Henderson and Associates' 40-year history. Tell her tonight, he decided, pocketing the phone. Celebrate properly. Back at the office, Kayla settled at her desk in the far corner, not by choice. The workspace assignments had been strategic, placing her away from the main action, near the break room where she'd overhear every casual insult disguised as office banter. She opened the Patterson file and spread the layouts across her desk. The campaign centered on youth mentorship, featuring diverse young faces filled with hope and determination. Every image had been carefully chosen, every word crafted to inspire action. This wasn't just a job for Kayla, it was her chance to prove her worth in an industry that often overlooked people who looked like her. Kayla, honey, could you grab me a coffee? Janet's voice cut through her concentration. Extra cream. You know where everything is. The request wasn't unusual. Fetch coffee, make copies, handle the unglamorous tasks while others claimed credit for creative work. Kayla looked up to find Janet's expectant face, manicured fingers already dismissing her. I'm actually deep in the Patterson presentation right now. Maybe after I finish this section. Janet's smile turned razor-sharp. Oh, of course. The Patterson thing. How ambitious of you. The word ambitious came out like an insult, loaded with implications that made Kayla's chest tighten. Around them, other conversations continued, but she felt the weight of attention, the way certain ears perked up when conflict brewed. It's just that we all know your strengths lie more in support work, Janet continued, her voice honeyed with false concern. Client-facing campaigns require a certain image. There it is. Kayla's hands stilled on the keyboard. The coded language, the careful dancing around what Janet really meant. Too black, too fat, too different for their pristine company image. The campaign tests really well with focus groups, Kayla said quietly, her voice steady despite the fire building in her chest. The community response has been overwhelming. Oh, I'm sure the community loves it. Janet's emphasis on community made it sound like a foreign country. But we have to think about broader appeal. Our clients expect a certain level of sophistication. What Kayla wanted to say could have filled a book. What she actually said was, I'll get your coffee in 5 minutes. As she turned back to her computer, her phone buzzed with a text from Logan. Love you, beautiful. Hope your day is amazing. Can't wait to see you tonight. The message was like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. Logan saw her, really saw her. He loved her curves, her brilliant mind, her fierce heart. In his arms, the office cruelty felt like distant noise from another planet. Love you too, she texted back. Something special planned for tonight? Maybe. Depends on how brave I'm feeling. Smiley face. Despite everything, Kayla smiled. Logan's surprises were always worth waiting for. Maybe tonight she'd finally tell him about the promotion she'd been hoping for. The creative director position opening up next month. She'd been building toward it for 2 years, every successful campaign adding to her portfolio. The office phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. Henderson and Associates. This is Kayla. Kayla Thompson? The voice was crisp, professional. This is Rebecca Chen from the Board of Directors. Could you come to conference room A at 10:15? We'd like to discuss your work on the Patterson campaign. Kayla's heart hammered. Board of Directors. The Patterson campaign. This could be it. Recognition, advancement, respect. Of course. I'll be there. As she hung up, Janet appeared at her desk like a vulture sensing opportunity. Board meeting? How exciting. I'm sure they just want to clarify some things about campaign direction. The way Janet said, clarify, made it sound ominous, but Kayla refused to let doubt creep in. Her work was solid. The campaign was brilliant. She belonged here, no matter what anyone else thought. At 10:10, she gathered her presentation materials and walked toward conference room A, her emerald blazer a bright flag of determination. She had no way of knowing that in less than 5 minutes, her husband would be walking into the executive elevator 2 floors above, ready to take control of the company that had been slowly crushing her spirit. What do you think will happen when Logan discovers what his wife has been enduring? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of love conquering injustice. The stage was set for a collision that would change everything. Conference room A felt like a courtroom. The long mahogany table stretched between Kayla and 5 board members, their faces arranged in expressions of polite corporate neutrality. Rebecca Chen sat at the head, her black hair pulled into a severe bun, her navy suit impeccable. To her right, Walter Hendricks, the company founder's son, drummed his fingers against his leather portfolio. "Please sit," Rebecca gestured to the chair across from them. The morning sun streaming through the windows created harsh shadows across the table, making the divide between Kayla and the board feel even more pronounced. Kayla placed her presentation folder on the table, her hands steady despite the nervous energy coursing through her veins. "Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the Patterson campaign. I believe we've created something truly impactful." "Yes, the Patterson account." Walter's voice carried the tone of someone discussing a minor inconvenience. "We've been reviewing the materials you submitted." "The focus group results have been exceptional," Kayla began, opening her folder to reveal charts and testimonials. "Community engagement is up 60%, and the client has already expressed interest in expanding the campaign." Rebecca leaned forward slightly. "Kayla, your passion for this project is evident. However, we need to address some concerns that have been raised." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Kayla felt that familiar tightening in her chest, the same sensation she experienced whenever Janet sharpened her claws. "Concerns." "The imagery you've chosen," Walter said, pulling out copies of her campaign materials. "While certainly diverse, we worry about the broader market appeal." There was that word again. Diverse. The way he said it made it sound like a disease. "The campaign specifically targets underserved communities," Kayla explained, her voice growing stronger. "The imagery reflects the actual demographics we're trying to reach. The authenticity is what's driving the engagement." Authenticity. Rebecca repeated the word as if tasting something sour. Kayla, Henderson and Associates has built its reputation on aspirational marketing. Our clients invest in campaigns that elevate their brand image. And this campaign does exactly that, Kayla shot back. The Patterson Foundation serves inner-city youth, showing real kids, real families, real hope. That's not just authentic, it's powerful. The board members exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them, the kind that happens in rooms where decisions get made about other people's lives. "There's another matter," Walter said, his tone shifting to something that made Kayla's skin crawl. "We've received feedback about your fit within the company culture." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was about to consume everything. "My fit." "Henderson and Associates maintains certain standards," Rebecca said carefully. "Our client-facing teams represent the company image. There are expectations about professionalism, appearance, cultural alignment." Kayla's mouth went dry. "I don't understand. My performance reviews have been excellent. My campaigns consistently exceed targets." "Performance isn't the only factor," Walter said. "Image matters. Client comfort matters. We serve Fortune 500 companies who expect their marketing partners to reflect their own values and aesthetic. The room was spinning slightly. Kayla gripped the edge of the table, her emerald blazer suddenly feeling too bright, too bold, too much. Are you saying I don't look professional enough? We're saying, Rebecca's voice took on the tone of someone delivering bad news with practiced efficiency, that perhaps your talents would be better utilized in a behind-the-scenes capacity. Research, data analysis, support functions where your unique perspective can add value without concerns about client interface. Unique perspective. Code for black. Code for different. Code for unwanted. The Patterson campaign was my concept, Kayla said, her voice barely above a whisper. From initial research to final execution. 3 months of work. And it shows real creativity, Walter said with the kind of condescending smile adults give to children's finger paintings. Which is why we think you'd excel in our research department. Less pressure, more opportunity to focus on your strengths. Less pressure. Translation. Less visibility. Less advancement. Less chance of making clients uncomfortable with her presence. What about the creative director position? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I've been working toward that promotion for 2 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Rebecca and Walter exchanged another look, this one filled with something that might have been pity if it weren't so cold. Kayla, Rebecca said slowly, that position requires someone who can interface with our highest-level clients. Someone who embodies the Henderson brand. We need to be realistic about expectations. The room was closing in on her. Every breath felt labored, every heartbeat too loud. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. You're saying I can't have the promotion because of how I look. We're saying the company has to make strategic decisions about positioning, Walter replied. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. As if her entire career, her dreams, her worth as a human being could be dismissed as just business. I need to think about this, Kayla managed, starting to gather her materials with hands that trembled slightly. Of course, Rebecca said. Take your time. But understand that these opportunities in research won't wait indefinitely. The market is competitive. The threat was clear. Take the demotion or find yourself without a job. Kayla stood on unsteady legs, her presentation folder clutched against her chest like armor. Thank you for your feedback. She walked toward the door, each step feeling like she was walking through quicksand. Behind her, she heard Walter's voice. She'll come around. They always do when they realize what's realistic. The conference room door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a coffin being sealed. In the hallway, Kayla leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow. The corporate artwork around her suddenly looked like a museum of exclusion, every smiling face in every photo looking exactly the same. White. Thin. Safe. Her phone buzzed. A text from Logan. Board meeting went great. Big news tonight. You're going to be so proud. She stared at the message, unable to process the disconnect between his joy and her devastation. How could she tell him that while he was celebrating success, she was being systematically erased? 2 floors above, Logan Mitchell stepped out of the executive elevator for the first time as CEO. The executive floor was a monument to corporate power, all polished surfaces and muted luxury. His assistant, Patricia, greeted him with a stack of files and a smile that held decades of corporate wisdom. Welcome to the corner office, Mr. Mitchell. The morning briefings are on your desk, and your first department meetings start at 11. Logan nodded, still processing the surreal nature of the moment. 6 months ago, he'd been a consultant hoping for a permanent position. Now he was running the company. Patricia, I want to review all current campaigns and personnel files. Get me up to speed on who's driving our creative success. Of course. Should I start with the senior staff? Start with everyone. I want to know about the talent we have at every level. If he'd known that his wife was 3 floors below, fighting for her professional life in a battle she couldn't win, everything would have been different. But corporate floors are designed to separate, to insulate, to keep the executive class from seeing the daily cruelties that happen in their name. As Logan settled into his new office, Kayla made her way back to her desk, passing Janet's workstation where a small crowd had gathered. Did you hear? Janet's voice carried clearly across the office space. New CEO started today. Young, successful, probably going to clean house. About time, someone replied. This place needs fresh energy. Fresh everything, Janet added with a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. New standards, new image, new direction. Kayla slipped past them, invisible in her devastation. At her desk, she stared at the Patterson campaign materials scattered across her workspace. All those faces looking back at her, young people who looked like her, filled with hope and possibility. She thought about the research position they'd offered her. A windowless office in the basement level. No client contact. No creative input. No future. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. Henderson and Associates. This is Kayla. Kayla. This is Marcus Patterson from the Foundation. I just wanted to call and tell you how incredible this campaign has been. The response from our community has been overwhelming. You've given these kids something to believe in. Tears pricked at her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. That means everything. I hope we can work together on the expansion campaign. You really understand what we're trying to accomplish. After she hung up, Kayla sat in the silence of her corner desk, surrounded by the work that mattered and the walls that were closing in. She had no idea that her husband was 2 floors above, reviewing files that would soon include her name, her work, her brilliant mind that was being systematically undervalued. The collision was coming, but for now, they existed in separate worlds of the same building, love and injustice occupying the same space, waiting for the moment when everything would change. How do you think Logan will react when he discovers what's happening to his wife? Let us know in the comments below. Kayla hadn't touched her lunch. The turkey sandwich Logan had packed for her sat untouched in its bright yellow container, the same one he'd been using to surprise her with little love notes since their first month of dating. Today's note read, "You're going to change the world today. I believe in you." Oh, the irony was suffocating. She stared at her computer screen, the cursor blinking in an empty email draft. How do you write a resignation letter when quitting feels like surrendering everything you've worked for? How do you explain to the man you love that his wife isn't good enough for the corporate world he's about to conquer? Still here, I see. Janet's voice slithered across the office space. She approached Kayla's desk wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Kayla's monthly car payment, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the afternoon humidity. I heard about your meeting with the board. Of course she had. Office gossip traveled faster than wildfire, especially when it involved someone's downfall. Janet, I'm really not in the mood for conversation right now. Kayla's voice was flat, drained of its usual warmth. Oh, honey, I'm not here to gloat. Janet perched on the edge of Kayla's desk, her red manicured nails drumming against the wood. I'm here to help. That got Kayla's attention. Janet helping anyone was like a shark offering swimming lessons. Help how? The research position they offered you. That's actually a smart move. Janet's voice took on the tone of someone dispensing wisdom to the unfortunate. You can work behind the scenes, contribute your unique insights, without the pressure of client representation. Unique insights. Kayla repeated the phrase, tasting the coded language that had been choking her all day. You mean my black insights, my fat insights, my undesirable insights. Janet's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. I mean your cultural insights. There's value in diversity, Kayla. Just not necessarily in leadership roles. The casual cruelty of it took Kayla's breath away. Janet wasn't even trying to hide behind corporate speak anymore. She was laying out the brutal truth of how the world saw her. Valuable enough to exploit, not valuable enough to elevate. You know what your problem is? Janet continued, settling more comfortably on the desk edge. You keep fighting against reality instead of working with it. Some people are meant to be behind the camera, not in front of it. Kayla's hands clenched into fists beneath her desk. Every instinct screamed at her to respond, to defend herself, to fight back. But the morning's meeting had drained her of that fire. They had won, and they knew it. The new CEO is going to want results, Janet pressed on. Fresh ideas, dynamic leadership, people who can represent the company at the highest levels. You could position yourself as a valuable contributor in the right role, or you could keep pushing for something that's never going to happen and find yourself out entirely. The threat was clear. Take the demotion or lose everything. Meanwhile, 2 floors above, Logan was experiencing his own form of resistance. The executive conference room buzzed with the kind of energy that came from new leadership and old politics colliding. 6 department heads sat around the polished table, each one sizing up their new boss while protecting their own territories. The Q4 numbers look strong, reported Financial Director Robert Hayes, a silver-haired man who'd been with the company since its founding. But we need to address some inefficiencies in the creative department. What kind of inefficiencies? Logan asked, pen poised over his legal pad. He'd learned early in his consulting career that the real information came in the details people tried to skim over. Personnel issues, chimed in HR Director Carol Brennan. Some staff members who aren't quite fitting with our evolving brand vision. Logan's eyebrows rose. Fitting how? The department heads exchanged glances, that familiar dance of corporate communication where everyone understood the subtext but nobody wanted to say it directly. Client feedback, Robert explained carefully. Some of our account representatives have expressed concerns about team composition on client-facing projects. I need specifics, Logan said, his voice taking on an edge that made several people shift in their seats. Are we talking about performance issues? Skill gaps? What exactly are we addressing? Another round of glances. Carol cleared her throat. It's more about market positioning. Ensuring our teams reflect the aspirational qualities our clients expect. The corporate speak was making Logan's head hurt. Are you telling me we're making staffing decisions based on appearance? We're making strategic decisions based on brand alignment, Robert replied smoothly. Henderson and Associates has always maintained certain standards of presentation and cultural fit. Logan set down his pen, the sound sharp in the suddenly quiet room. Define cultural fit. The silence stretched uncomfortably. These were conversations that happened in code, in carefully modulated language designed to avoid legal liability while achieving discriminatory results. Professional standards, Carol offered weakly. Image considerations, added Creative Director Tom Walsh, speaking up for the first time. Our clients invest significant resources in their marketing partnerships. They expect teams that embody success, sophistication, the kind of polish that reflects well on their own brands. Logan leaned back in his chair, studying the faces around the table. Something was happening here, something that made his consultant instincts tingle with warning signals. I want to review all personnel files, he said finally. Starting with the creative department. I want to see performance metrics, client feedback, project outcomes. Everything. Of course, Carol nodded quickly. Though you should know we've already identified some positions for restructuring. lateral moves that would better utilize certain employees' skill sets. Whose skill sets? Well, there's one junior executive who's been struggling with client interface issues. Kayla Thompson. Talented researcher, but perhaps better suited for behind-the-scenes work. Logan went very still. The name hit him like a physical blow, but he kept his expression neutral through years of consulting training. These people didn't know he was married. Didn't know that the woman they were casually dismissing was the person who made his world make sense. Kayla Thompson, he repeated carefully. What kind of struggles? Cultural alignment issues. Tom Walsh jumped in. She's worked on some niche campaigns that haven't quite fit our broader market strategy. The board has recommended transitioning her to research, where her particular perspective might be more appropriately utilized. Cultural alignment issues. Particular perspective. Logan felt something cold and dangerous settling in his chest. He'd heard this language before, in boardrooms and strategy sessions where people's lives got reduced to market considerations and demographic calculations. I see, he said quietly. And this recommendation came from the board? This morning, actually, Carol confirmed. Very timely, given your arrival. Clean slate, fresh direction, optimal team composition. Logan nodded slowly, but inside, a storm was building. His wife. They were talking about his brilliant, talented, beautiful wife like she was a problem to be managed rather than an asset to be valued. I'll want to review her files personally, he said, along with the specifics of this board recommendation. Of course, though the matter is fairly straightforward. Sometimes these transitions are best handled quickly, before expectations become unrealistic. Back on the main office floor, Kayla was packing up her desk. Not permanently, not yet, but she needed to take some time to think without Janet's voice drilling into her skull or the board's casual cruelty echoing in her ears. Her phone buzzed with a text from Logan. How was your day, beautiful? Mine's been full of surprises. Can't wait to share everything with you tonight. She stared at the message, tears blurring the words. How could she tell him? How could she explain that while he was building his career, hers was being systematically dismantled? He'd be furious, would want to fight, would probably do something that could hurt his own advancement. Long day, she texted back. Tell me about your surprises when you get home. Are you okay? You sound off. Even through text, he could read her moods. After 3 years together, Logan knew her rhythms better than anyone. Just tired. See you tonight. She slipped her phone into her purse and gathered the Patterson campaign materials. Whatever happened next, she wasn't leaving her work behind. Those faces, those stories, that hope she'd captured in every image and word, that belonged to her. Leaving early? Janet's voice followed her toward the elevator. Probably for the best. Big changes coming, and it's always easier to adapt when you're not fighting the tide. Kayla didn't respond. The elevator doors closed on Janet's satisfied smile, carrying Kayla down and away from the battlefield where her career was bleeding out. As the elevator descended, Logan was studying personnel files in his corner office, each page revealing a pattern that made his blood pressure rise. Stellar performance reviews. Innovative campaigns. Client praise. And then, suddenly, vague language about fit and alignment and market considerations. He pulled up the Patterson Foundation campaign on his computer, the one Carol had mentioned as an example of Kayla's niche work. The screen filled with images of young faces, diverse and hopeful, surrounded by copy that was both inspiring and authentic. The engagement metrics were outstanding. The client testimonials glowed with praise. This wasn't niche work. This was brilliant work. Logan picked up his phone and dialed his assistant. Patricia, I need you to set up individual meetings with every member of the creative team. starting tomorrow morning. And I want copies of all board recommendations from the past month. Certainly, Mr. Mitchell. Any particular focus for these meetings? I want to understand how we evaluate talent in this company. And I want to know why we're considering moving our best performers into positions where they can't perform. As Logan ended the call, Kayla was walking through the parking garage, her heels echoing off concrete walls that seemed to close in around her. The Patterson materials felt heavy in her arms, weighted with dreams that were slipping away. She didn't know that her husband was 2 floors above, discovering the extent of her workplace hell. Didn't know that he was about to declare war on a system that had tried to break the woman he loved. The resistance phase was ending. Soon, they would be forced into proximity, and everything would change. The townhouse in Lincoln Park felt different when Kayla walked through the front door. The same warm lighting Logan had installed last spring, the same photos of their families lining the hallway, the same scent of vanilla candles she loved to burn in the evenings. But tonight, everything felt fragile, like she was seeing their life through cracked glass. "Baby, that you?" Logan's voice called from the kitchen, filled with the kind of excitement that made her heart ache. He sounded so happy, so full of good news he was bursting to share. "It's me," she called back, setting her purse and the Patterson materials on the hall table. She caught her reflection in the mirror hanging above it and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked defeated, her emerald blazer wrinkled, her natural hair slightly mussed from running nervous fingers through it all afternoon. Logan appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing jeans and the blue button-down she'd bought him for his birthday, the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. His smile could have powered the entire city, but it faltered when he saw her face. "Hey, what's wrong?" He crossed to her in 3 quick strides, his hands finding her shoulders. "You look like you've been through a war." The concern in his voice almost broke her. This man, this beautiful, successful, brilliant man who loved her completely, was about to find out that his wife was considered an embarrassment to corporate America. "Just a long day," she managed, forcing a smile that felt like wearing a mask. "You said you had news?" Logan studied her face with the intensity he usually reserved for complex business problems. His dark eyes missed nothing, cataloging every detail of her distress with the same precision he used to analyze market data. "My news can wait. Tell me what happened." "Logan, really, I'm fine. I want to hear about your day." She moved toward the kitchen, needing distance from his perceptive gaze. "It smells amazing in here. Did you cook?" He'd made her favorite, jerk chicken with rice and beans, the recipe he'd learned from her grandmother during their first Christmas together. The dining room table was set with their good dishes, the ones they usually saved for special occasions. Candles flickered between 2 wine glasses filled with something that looked expensive. "This is beautiful," she whispered, tears threatening again. He'd gone to so much trouble, clearly planning to celebrate something important, and she was about to ruin it with her professional humiliation. "Kayla." Logan's voice was gentle but firm. "Talk to me. What happened at work?" She turned to face him, this man who'd supported every dream she'd ever voiced, who believed in her talent when she doubted herself, who saw her as brilliant and beautiful and worthy of everything good in the world. "They offered me a new position today," she said carefully. Logan's face lit up. "That's amazing. The creative director role? Baby, I knew they'd recognize your talent." The hope in his voice was a knife twisting in her chest. "Not exactly." His smile faded. "What do you mean?" Kayla moved to the window overlooking their small backyard, where Logan had planted a garden last summer. Even in November, some hardy flowers still bloomed, stubborn splashes of color against the approaching winter. "They want to move me to research. Behind-the-scenes work. No client contact." The silence behind her stretched too long. When she turned back, Logan's expression had gone very still, the same look he got when processing information that didn't make sense. "That's a lateral move at best," he said slowly. "Why would they offer you that when you've been working toward the director position?" "They said I'd be better suited for support work. That my skills would be more appropriately utilized in a role with less visibility." Logan's jaw tightened. "What exactly did they say? Does it matter?" Kayla sank into one of the dining room chairs, suddenly exhausted. The message was clear. "I don't fit their image of what a Henderson and Associates executive should look like." "They said that. Not in those words. They're too smart for that." "But Logan, I've heard it in a dozen different ways over the past 2 years. I'm too diverse for their aspirational marketing. I don't embody the right aesthetic. I lack cultural alignment with their brand vision." Logan was very quiet, but she could see something building behind his eyes, a storm gathering force. "The Patterson campaign," he said suddenly. "You've been working on that for months." "They're taking me off it. Said it was too niche, that they need someone who can handle broader market appeal." Kayla's voice cracked slightly. "Logan, I put everything into that campaign. Those kids, those families. It was supposed to be my breakthrough project." Logan moved to the table and sat across from her, his hands flat against the polished wood. "Tell me everything. Every word they said, every person who was in that room. Why? What's the point? It's done." "The point," Logan said, his voice taking on an edge she rarely heard, "is that what they did was wrong. Probably illegal. And definitely something that needs to be addressed." Kayla looked at him across the candlelit table, this man who fought for justice in abstract terms, who believed the system could be fixed if good people stood up to corruption. He didn't understand that for people like her, fighting back often meant losing everything. "Logan, you don't get it. This isn't a battle I can win. Fighting them will just make me the angry black woman who can't accept feedback. They'll destroy what's left of my career and make sure I never work in marketing again." "So you're just going to accept it? Take a demotion you don't deserve because they're too ignorant to recognize your talent?" "I'm going to be practical." The words tasted bitter. "I'm going to keep my job and try to make the best of a bad situation." Logan stared at her, something like disbelief crossing his features. "This isn't you. The woman I married doesn't back down from fights that matter. The woman you married has never been systematically excluded from every opportunity she's earned." The words exploded out of her, months of suppressed frustration finally breaking free. "You don't know what it's like to walk into work every day knowing that no matter how hard you work, how brilliant your ideas are, how much value you add, you'll always be seen as a diversity hire who should be grateful for whatever scraps they throw your way." Logan flinched as if she'd slapped him. "I know I don't understand everything you face. But I know you. And I know you're better than any of those people. Your work speaks for itself. My work doesn't matter if they won't let me do it." Kayla wiped angry tears from her cheeks. "The Patterson Foundation called today. They love the campaign, want to expand it. But I won't be working on the expansion because I'm being shuffled off to count surveys in a basement office." "Then we'll fight it. There are laws against this kind of discrimination." "With what proof?" "They were careful, Logan. Everything they said can be interpreted as legitimate business decisions. And even if we could prove discrimination, do you know what happens to whistleblowers in corporate America? They get blacklisted. No one wants to hire the person who sued their last company." Logan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the candles flickering between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer but no less intense. "What if I told you that things might be different than you think? That there might be ways to address this situation that you haven't considered?" "What do you mean?" He seemed to be wrestling with something, words fighting to get out. I got some news today, too. Good news, actually. Life-changing news. Kayla looked at him through her tears. This man who'd been trying to celebrate something important while she fell apart. Tell me. The consulting project I've been working on? It wasn't just consulting. They were evaluating me for a permanent position. A big one. Understanding began to dawn, slow and warm like sunrise. How big? Logan reached across the table and took her hands in his. I'm the new CEO of Henderson and Associates. The words hung in the air between them like something too fragile to touch. Kayla stared at him, processing information that seemed too impossible to be real. You're joking. I'm not. I was going to tell you over dinner. Celebrate properly. The board voted unanimously. I officially started this morning. Kayla's mind raced, connecting dots that created a picture she couldn't quite comprehend. You're the new CEO of the company that just demoted me. Yes. You're the fresh leadership they're using to justify restructuring my career. Apparently. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep in her chest, the kind of laughter that bordered on hysteria. This is insane. This morning I was getting pushed out of my dream job, and my husband is the man they hired to replace the old regime. Logan squeezed her hands. This changes everything, Kayla. I can fix this. I can make sure you get the recognition you deserve. But even as he said it, she could see him working through the complications. Company policies about nepotism. The optics of the new CEO immediately promoting his wife. The ammunition it would give people like Janet to claim that any success Kayla achieved was unearned. It changes everything and it changes nothing, she said quietly. If you help me now, I'll never know if I earned it. And everyone else will always believe I didn't. You've already earned it. Your work proves that. Not to them. Not to the people who matter. Kayla pulled her hands free and stood up, pacing to the window again. God, this is such a mess. Logan joined her at the window, his reflection appearing beside hers in the glass. We'll figure it out. Together. She leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. Outside, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky, pinpricks of light in the gathering darkness. What if we can't? What if there's no way to fix this without making everything worse? Then we'll make a new plan. But Kayla, I'm not going to stand by and watch talented people get pushed aside because of prejudice and ignorance. Starting with you. The forced proximity of their situation was becoming clear. They were bound together now, not just by love but by the complex web of corporate politics and personal justice. His success was tied to her struggle, her future linked to his power. Promise me something, she said, turning in his arms. Promise me you won't do anything rash. This company could be your future. Don't let my problems derail your career before it even starts. Logan's hands framed her face, his thumbs brushing away the last of her tears. Your problems are my problems. Your success is my success. That's what marriage means. That's what love means, she corrected. But love doesn't always win in corporate boardrooms. Maybe it's time it started. As they stood together in their dining room, surrounded by the dinner he'd prepared to celebrate his triumph and her defeat, both of them knew that tomorrow would bring decisions that would define not just their careers but their marriage. The comfortable distance between his work and hers had collapsed, forcing them into a proximity that would test everything they thought they knew about justice, love, and the price of standing up for what's right. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, Chicago's November sky matching Kayla's mood as she sat at their kitchen island, nursing her second cup of coffee. Logan had left early for what he called reconnaissance meetings, promising to gather more information before they decided how to proceed. The house felt too quiet without his presence, filled with the weight of unspoken possibilities. Kayla's phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Mom wants to know if you're still coming to Sunday dinner. She's making your favorite cornbread." The normalcy of the message felt surreal. Her family had no idea that her world had shifted on its axis in the past 24 hours. She typed back, "Wouldn't miss it. Tell Mom I love her. Everything okay? You sound weird even through text." Keisha had always been able to read her, even from 300 miles away in Detroit. 2 years younger but infinitely wiser about navigating workplace politics, Keisha worked as a software engineer for a tech company that actually valued diversity. "Long story. Call you later." Kayla set down her phone and opened her laptop, scrolling through job listings with the mechanical desperation of someone drowning in professional quicksand. Marketing manager positions in smaller companies, roles that would represent a step backward but might offer more respect than she was getting at Henderson and Associates. Her email chimed with a new message. The sender made her heart skip. Marcus Patterson from the Foundation. "Kayla, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I wanted to follow up on our conversation yesterday about the campaign expansion. The board is so impressed with your work that we'd like to discuss bringing you on as a consultant for our other initiatives. Would you be available for lunch this week to talk?" She stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure she wasn't imagining the lifeline being thrown her way. The Patterson Foundation wanted to hire her directly. It wouldn't be the corporate ladder she'd been climbing, but it would be meaningful work with people who valued her contributions. Before she could second-guess herself, she typed back, "I'd love to discuss this opportunity. I'm available any day this week." The response came back within minutes. "Wonderful. How about today at noon? Wildberry Cafe on North Clark? I'll bring our program director, Angela Rodriguez. She's excited to meet the creative mind behind our campaign." "Perfect. See you at noon." For the first time in 24 hours, Kayla felt something that resembled hope. Maybe there was a path forward that didn't involve corporate boardrooms and coded discrimination. Maybe she could build something better on her own terms. Meanwhile, across the city at Henderson and Associates, Logan was learning just how deep the rot went in his new company. His morning had started with individual meetings with each member of the creative team, and the pattern that emerged made his stomach turn. "So you've been here how long, Nicole?" Logan asked the young graphic designer sitting across from him. Nicole Chen was 25, brilliant, and clearly uncomfortable in the executive conference room. 2 years in December, Nicole replied. Her portfolio spread across the mahogany table. "I started right after graduation from Art Institute." "And your career progression?" Nicole's smile faltered slightly. "Well, I've been hoping for more responsibility. But they keep telling me I need more experience before taking on major clients." Logan flipped through her portfolio, noting the sophisticated designs and innovative concepts. "This work looks pretty advanced to me. What kind of feedback have you received?" "Mostly that my style is too experimental for their core clientele. They prefer classic, traditional approaches." There it was again. The coded language that meant not white enough, or not conventional enough, or not what our clients expect. Logan made a note on his legal pad, adding Nicole's situation to the growing list of talented employees being held back by subjective and likely discriminatory evaluations. "Has anyone specifically discussed advancement opportunities with you?" Nicole shifted in her chair. Tom Walsh mentioned that there might be openings in the print production department. Less creative oversight, but more stable work. Print production. Another dead-end track for someone whose talent clearly exceeded her current role. What about client presentations? Have you been included in those? Not really. They say I'm still developing my presentation skills. Logan had heard enough. Nicole was the third person this morning to describe being systematically excluded from advancement opportunities under the guise of developmental feedback. The pattern was clear, and it was damning. Nicole, I want you to put together a presentation for the Hartwell Industries account. Full creative concept, client-ready materials. Can you have that ready by Friday? Her eyes widened. The Hartwell account? That's one of our biggest clients. Which is why I want our best creative minds working on it. Think you're up for the challenge? Absolutely. The transformation in her posture was immediate, confidence replacing uncertainty. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I won't let you down. As Nicole left, Logan's assistant Patricia knocked on the open door. Your 11 o'clock is here. Tom Walsh from Creative. Tom Walsh entered like a man walking to his own execution, his usual swagger replaced by nervous energy. At 42, he'd been creative director for 5 years, riding the wave of existing accounts while apparently stifling any talent that might threaten his position. Tom, thanks for coming. I wanted to discuss your department's talent development strategies. Tom settled into his chair, straightening his red tie with hands that trembled slightly. Of course. We've been focusing on building a strong foundation of traditional marketing principles. Traditional. Logan let the word hang in the air. Define that for me. Time-tested approaches. Classic messaging that resonates with established market segments. Our core clientele appreciates consistency and reliability. And where does innovation fit into that model? Tom's smile looked painted on. Innovation is important, naturally. But it has to be the right kind of innovation. Calculated risks with proven demographics. Logan pulled out a file that had been sitting on his desk since yesterday. I've been reviewing some recent campaigns. The Patterson Foundation work, for instance. Impressive engagement metrics, strong client satisfaction, innovative approach to community outreach. Yes, well, that was more of a niche project. Kayla Thompson handled that one. She has a certain perspective that works well with those specific demographics. The careful phrasing made Logan's jaw clench, but he kept his expression neutral. Specific demographics. Urban markets, community-focused initiatives. It's good to have team members who understand those particular audiences. Logan leaned back in his chair, studying Tom's face. The man was digging his own grave with every coded phrase, apparently unaware that he was describing discriminatory practices to the one person in the building with the power to destroy his career. And Kayla's advancement prospects within the department? Tom's discomfort was palpable now. Well, advancement requires a broader skill set. Client relationship management, strategic thinking, the ability to interface with C-suite executives from major corporations. It's a significant step up from niche campaign work. You don't think she has those skills? I think she has valuable contributions to make in the right role. The research position we discussed would allow her to focus on her strengths without the pressure of broader market considerations. Logan made another note, his handwriting sharp with controlled anger. Tom, I want you to prepare a comprehensive review of all your team members. Performance metrics, advancement recommendations, specific examples of their contributions to major accounts. I want it on my desk by end of business Thursday. Of course. Though I should mention that we've already identified the most promising candidates for advancement. Brad Hoffman has been exceptional with the automotive accounts, and Susan Martinez has really connected with our retail clients. Both white. Both conventional. Both exactly what Logan had expected Tom to mention. Include everyone, Tom. I want a complete picture of the talent in your department. After Tom left, Logan sat alone in his office, the weight of what he was uncovering settling heavily on his shoulders. This wasn't just about Kayla, though her situation was the most personal and infuriating. The entire company seemed built on a foundation of systemic exclusion, talented people being sorted into tracks based on coded assessments that had nothing to do with their actual abilities. His phone rang, interrupting his dark thoughts. "Mr. Mitchell? It's Patricia. Your wife called. She wanted you to know she's having lunch with the Patterson Foundation about a consulting opportunity." Logan felt a complicated mix of pride and concern. Kayla was already exploring other options, which showed her resilience and talent. But it also meant she was preparing to leave Henderson and Associates, possibly taking her brilliant mind somewhere his new company couldn't benefit from it. "Did she leave any other message?" "She said to tell you that she loves you and she'll see you tonight. Oh, and she said something about not waiting for permission to build the career she deserves." That sounded exactly like the Kayla he'd fallen in love with. The woman who'd started their first conversation by challenging his assumptions about marketing demographics. The woman who'd convinced him to volunteer at a literacy program in Bronzeville, opening his eyes to communities he'd never truly understood. The woman who made him want to be better, fairer, more conscious of the world beyond his own experience. Logan pulled out his phone and scrolled through their text history, stopping at a conversation from 6 months ago. "Kayla, sometimes I feel like I'm fighting a war nobody else can see." "Logan, what do you mean?" "Kayla, like I'm proving myself over and over again, but the goalposts keep moving. Like being twice as good only gets me half as far." "Logan, that's not fair." "Kayla, fair doesn't factor into it, baby. It's just reality." "Logan, then we change reality." "Kayla, easier said than done." "Logan, nothing worthwhile is easy." Reading those messages now, Logan realized he'd been naive about the scope of what Kayla faced every day. He'd known workplace discrimination existed in abstract terms, but he hadn't understood the daily erosion of confidence that came from being systematically undervalued. The constant pressure to prove worthiness for opportunities that others took for granted. But now he was in a position to do more than offer sympathy and encouragement. He had the power to change the system that had been grinding down his wife and countless others. Logan opened his laptop and began typing an email to the board of directors. "I'm calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We need to discuss immediate changes to our personnel evaluation processes and advancement criteria. I've identified significant issues that require board-level attention and action." He paused, considering his next words carefully. This was the moment where he stopped being a cautious new CEO and started being the man who'd promised his wife that love could win in corporate boardrooms. The current system is not only ethically problematic, but legally vulnerable. I'll be presenting evidence of discriminatory practices that put the company at serious risk. This is not a discussion I'm willing to postpone. As he hit send, Logan thought about Kayla sitting in Wildberry Cafe, probably charming the Patterson Foundation team with her passion and brilliance. She was building her own path forward, with or without Henderson and Associates. But he was going to make sure she didn't have to choose between her marriage and her career. Some battles were worth fighting, regardless of the cost. Wildberry Cafe had been everything Kayla hoped it would be. Marcus Patterson turned out to be a soft-spoken man in his 50s with graying temples and eyes that lit up when he talked about the young people his foundation served. Angela Rodriguez, the program director, was a firecracker of energy who'd peppered Kayla with questions about community engagement strategies and authentic storytelling. "We've never seen response rates like this," Angela had said over spinach salads and coffee. "The kids are actually engaging with the content instead of scrolling past it. Whatever you did, you connected with them on a level our previous campaigns never achieved." The consulting offer was generous, a 6-month contract to develop campaigns for 3 different community initiatives, with the possibility of expanding into a full-time position if things went well. It wasn't the corporate ladder she'd been climbing, but it was meaningful work with people who valued her perspective as an asset rather than a liability. Now Kayla sat on their living room couch, legs tucked under her favorite burgundy throw blanket, waiting for Logan to come home. The Patterson materials were spread across the coffee table, but this time they represented opportunity instead of heartbreak. Her laptop showed the contract draft Angela had emailed, terms that offered both financial security and creative freedom. The front door opened at 8:47, exactly when Logan had texted he'd be home. His routine was as reliable as sunrise, but tonight she heard something different in his footsteps. Purpose. Determination. The sound of a man who'd made important decisions. "Kitchen smells good," he called out, hanging his coat in the hall closet. "Thai takeout from that place on Armitage you love. Pad Thai with extra vegetables, massaman curry, spring rolls." Kayla had needed comfort food after the emotional whiplash of the past 2 days. "There's a beer in the fridge with your name on it." Logan appeared in the living room doorway, loosening his navy blue tie. He looked exhausted but energized, like someone who'd been running on adrenaline and righteous anger for 12 straight hours. "How was lunch with the Patterson Foundation?" He settled beside her on the couch, his arm automatically circling her shoulders. "Amazing! They offered me a consulting contract." Kayla showed him the laptop screen. 6 months, possibly more. Full creative control, community focus campaigns, people who actually appreciate what I bring to the table. Logan read through the contract terms, his eyebrows rising as he processed the financial details. "This is a substantial offer. More than you're making at Henderson. And infinitely more respect than I'm getting there." Kayla closed the laptop and turned to face him. "I'm thinking about taking it." "You should. You'd be incredible at this work." His voice held genuine enthusiasm, but she could see something complicated behind his eyes. "But. No but. I want you to be happy, to work somewhere that values your talent." Logan pulled her closer, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "I just spent the day learning exactly how toxic Henderson and Associates has become." "That bad? Worse than we thought." "It's not just you, Kayla. There's a systematic pattern of sidelining anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of appropriate representation. Talented people being shuffled into dead-end roles, advancement opportunities mysteriously evaporating, coded language in every performance review." Kayla felt a familiar tightness in her chest. "How many others?" "At least 6 that I identified today. Probably more once I dig deeper." Logan's voice carried the kind of controlled fury she'd only heard a few times in their relationship. Nicole Chen, brilliant graphic designer, being pushed toward print production. Marcus Williams in account management, consistently passed over for client-facing roles despite outstanding performance metrics. It's a deliberate strategy disguised as personnel development. Marcus Williams? The guy who landed the Riverside Hospital account. The same one. Tom Walsh described him as having valuable contributions to make in support roles while promoting Brad Hoffman, who's never closed a deal half that size. The scope of it was staggering. Kayla had thought her situation was personal, individual, maybe even deserved on some level she couldn't identify. Learning that it was part of a larger pattern felt simultaneously validating and devastating. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Logan was quiet for a moment, his hand still moving in gentle circles on her shoulder. "I called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. I'm going to present evidence of discriminatory practices and demand immediate changes." The words hung between them like a declaration of war. Kayla felt a flutter of hope mixed with terror. This was what she'd dreamed of, someone with power standing up to the system that had been crushing her spirit. But it was also dangerous, the kind of confrontation that could destroy Logan's career before it truly began. "That's risky," she said carefully. These board members hired you. Accusing them of discrimination in your first week as CEO could backfire spectacularly. It could. But doing nothing while talented people get systematically excluded is worse. Logan shifted to face her fully, his dark eyes intense with conviction. Kayla, I've spent 3 years in consulting, watching companies destroy themselves through short-sighted thinking and unconscious bias. Henderson and Associates is bleeding talent because they're more invested in maintaining appearance than recognizing ability. She studied his face, seeing the man who'd fallen in love with her partly because she'd challenged his assumptions about effective marketing. The man who'd spent their first anniversary volunteering at a food bank in Englewood because she'd opened his eyes to communities beyond his experience. You know this isn't just about me, right? Even if you fix everything tomorrow, people will always wonder if your wife got special treatment. Let them wonder. Your work speaks for itself. Logan took her hands in his, calloused fingers warm against her skin. Besides, I'm not fighting for Kayla Thompson, employee. I'm fighting for every person in that building who's been told their worth is limited by how they look or where they come from. The conviction in his voice made her heart race. This was the man she'd married, someone who believed systems could change if good people were willing to fight for justice. Tell me about your day, she said. All of it. So he did. Logan described each meeting, every coded phrase, the patterns that revealed themselves like a map of institutional prejudice. He talked about Nicole's portfolio being described as too experimental, and Marcus's client relationships being labeled culturally specific. He shared Tom Walsh's obvious discomfort when pressed for specifics about advancement criteria. The Patterson campaign came up repeatedly, Logan said, always in the context of it being niche work suitable for certain demographics. As if connecting with urban communities somehow requires less skill than appealing to suburban markets. They've never understood that good marketing is universal, Kayla replied. Authenticity resonates across demographics. Hope, family, opportunity, those aren't niche concepts. Exactly. Which is why what you created works so well. It's not targeting a demographic, it's speaking to human experience. They sat together in comfortable silence, the weight of shared understanding settling between them. The Thai food was getting cold on the kitchen counter, but neither moved to retrieve it. This moment felt too important to interrupt with the mundane necessity of dinner. I have a confession, Logan said eventually. What? I've been reading your work for months. Not just the Patterson campaign, everything you've created since you started at Henderson. Your client retention rates, engagement metrics, creative concepts. You're the most talented marketer in that building, and it's not even close. Kayla felt tears prick her eyes. You never told me you were looking at my professional work. I didn't want you to think I was checking up on you. But Kayla, your campaigns consistently outperform everyone else's. The community bank project, the local restaurant promotion, the non-profit series, they're all brilliant. Authentic, effective, profitable. Any company would be lucky to have you. Then why do I feel like I'm fighting for scraps? Logan's arms tightened around her. Because they've been gaslighting you. Making you doubt your worth so you wouldn't demand what you deserve. It's a classic tactic for maintaining power structures. The validation felt like oxygen after holding her breath for months. To hear someone with Logan's business acumen confirm what she'd suspected but couldn't prove gave her strength she hadn't felt in years. The Patterson Foundation contract, she said. I want to take it. Good. You should. Even if it means leaving Henderson and Associates? Logan was quiet for a long moment. I want you to be happy more than I want you to work for my company. If that means you build your career elsewhere, I support that completely. And us. How do we handle the politics of the CEO's wife leaving for a better opportunity? We tell the truth. That Henderson and Associates failed to recognize exceptional talent, and that talent found a better home. Logan's voice carried the confidence of someone who'd found his moral center. Let people draw their own conclusions. Kayla leaned against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. For the first time in months, she felt like herself again. Not the diminished version corporate culture had tried to create, but the confident woman who'd built meaningful campaigns and believed in her own worth. I love you, she whispered against his shirt. I love you too. And tomorrow, I'm going to make sure everyone at Henderson and Associates understands exactly what kind of talent they've been wasting. Outside their windows, Chicago's skyline glittered in the darkness. Millions of lights representing millions of dreams and struggles and small victories. In their living room, surrounded by takeout containers and campaign materials and the quiet strength of their partnership, Kayla felt ready to face whatever came next. The bonding was complete. Tomorrow would bring confrontation and consequences, but tonight they were simply two people who'd found their way back to each other across the minefield of corporate politics and personal ambition. The executive boardroom at Henderson and Associates felt like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. Logan sat at the head of the massive mahogany table, his presentation materials organized in neat stacks, his laptop open to a PowerPoint that would either reform the company or end his career. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the faces of 5 board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Rebecca Chen sat to his right, her usual composed demeanor slightly cracked around the edges. Walter Hendricks drummed his fingers against his leather portfolio, a tell Logan had noticed during yesterday's meetings. The other 3 board members, Carol Brennan from HR, Robert Hayes from Finance, and Patricia Delacroix, the external consultant, all wore expressions of polite attention masking barely concealed irritation. Thank you all for accommodating this emergency meeting, Logan began, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. I've called you here to address critical issues I've discovered in our personnel management practices. Logan, Walter interrupted, his tone suggesting paternal patience. You've been here 3 days. Perhaps it's premature to identify critical issues when you're still learning our established systems. The condescension was immediate and obvious. Logan felt his jaw tighten but kept his expression neutral. With respect, Walter, discriminatory practices don't require a learning curve to identify. They require immediate action. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Rebecca shifted in her chair, her pen clicking against her notepad in a nervous rhythm. That's quite an accusation, Carol said carefully. Our HR policies are thoroughly vetted and legally compliant. Logan opened his laptop and projected his first slide onto the wall-mounted screen. Let's examine the evidence. The slide showed a grid of employee photos with their advancement trajectories over the past 2 years. The pattern was stark. White employees consistently promoted to client-facing roles and leadership positions, while employees of color were shuffled into support functions regardless of their performance metrics. This is our creative department's advancement pattern, Logan continued. Notice anything interesting? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Patricia Delacroix, the external consultant who was supposed to provide objective oversight, cleared her throat. Personnel decisions are based on multiple factors: performance, cultural fit, client needs. Cultural fit. Logan let the phrase hang in the air. Define that for me. More uncomfortable shifting. Robert Hayes jumped in. Ability to interface effectively with our client base. Communication style, professional presentation, understanding of market expectations. Logan clicked to his next slide. Performance metrics side by side with advancement outcomes. Nicole Chen, top performer in creative output, 0 client presentations in 2 years. Marcus Williams, highest client satisfaction scores in account management, passed over for 3 promotions. Kayla Thompson, best engagement metrics in the department, recommended for demotion to research. Now wait just a minute. Walter's voice carried the sharp edge of someone whose authority was being challenged. You're cherry-picking data to support a predetermined conclusion. These are complex personnel decisions based on comprehensive evaluations. Comprehensive evaluations that consistently find subjective reasons to limit advancement for employees who don't fit a specific demographic profile. Logan's voice remained calm, but something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. Tom Walsh described Kayla's Patterson campaign as niche work suitable for specific demographics. What exactly does that mean? Carol was scribbling notes frantically, probably calculating legal liability. Tom's language may have been imprecise, but the substance of his evaluation focused on market positioning and brand alignment. Brand alignment. Logan clicked to the next slide, the Patterson campaign's actual performance data. This niche campaign has the highest engagement rates, best ROI, and strongest client satisfaction scores of any project our creative department has produced this year. The client is expanding the contract and specifically requested to continue working with Kayla. Rebecca finally spoke up, her voice tight with controlled frustration. Logan, I understand you want to support your team, but you're misinterpreting normal business decisions as discrimination. Sometimes advancement requires qualities that aren't captured in performance metrics, such as leadership presence, executive bearing, the ability to represent the company at the highest levels. Rebecca's words came out clipped, precise. Not everyone is suited for every role, regardless of their technical skills. There it was. The coded language that meant not white enough, or not thin enough, or not conventional enough to represent their brand. Logan felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. Executive bearing, he repeated slowly. Help me understand what that looks like. The board members exchanged glances, that familiar dance of people who understood each other perfectly but couldn't say what they really meant out loud. Professional polish, Walter offered. Gravitas. The kind of presence that inspires confidence in Fortune 500 executives. Logan pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo from last month's marketing conference. This is Kayla presenting the preliminary Patterson results to a room of non-profit executives and community leaders. Does she look like she lacks professional polish? The photo showed Kayla in a royal blue dress, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, speaking confidently to an engaged audience. Her posture radiated competence and authority, her smile warm but commanding. That's not the same as interfacing with corporate clients, Carol said quickly. Different audiences have different expectations. Different how? Another round of uncomfortable silence. Patricia Delacroix finally spoke, her voice carrying the weary tone of someone stating an obvious truth. Logan, you're forcing us to say things that are better left implied. Our clients have preferences, comfort levels, expectations about who represents their brand investments. Say it plainly, Logan commanded, his voice taking on an edge that made several board members flinch. What are these preferences based on? Aesthetics, Robert Hayes said bluntly, apparently deciding honesty was the best strategy. Market research shows that certain demographics respond better to representatives who reflect aspirational qualities. Sophistication, refinement, the kind of polish that signals success. Logan stared at him for a long moment. You're telling me that clients prefer white, thin representatives because they equate whiteness and thinness with success. I'm telling you that market research drives decision-making, Robert shot back. We're not a social justice organization, Logan. We're a business. Our job is to deliver results for clients, not to advance political agendas. The mask was finally off. The careful corporate speak had given way to the brutal reality underneath. Systematic exclusion based on appearance, justified as market necessity. Political agendas, Logan repeated, his voice deadly quiet. You consider equal opportunity employment a political agenda. We consider realistic assessment of market dynamics good business, Walter interjected. You're 3 days into this job, Logan. Don't presume to lecture us about strategies that have built this company's success over 4 decades. Logan stood up slowly, his 6'2" frame commanding attention. Success built on what foundation? Excluding talented people because they don't fit your aesthetic preferences? Limiting advancement based on client comfort levels that you've never actually tested? We've tested them, Rebecca said defensively. Focus groups consistently show preference for traditional presentation styles. Show me the data. Uncomfortable silence. Carol shuffled through her papers. Those studies are proprietary research conducted by external firms. Which firms? What methodologies? What specific questions were asked? Logan's consulting background was showing, his ability to dissect research methodology cutting through their vague assertions. More silence. Patricia cleared her throat. Logan, you're missing the bigger picture. Henderson and Associates has built its reputation on delivering premium marketing services to elite clientele. That requires maintaining certain standards of presentation and cultural alignment. It's not personal, it's practical. It's illegal, Logan said flatly. And it's destroying this company from the inside out. Walter's face flushed red. You're out of line. The board selected you to provide fresh leadership, not to tear down systems that have proven successful. Successful. Logan clicked to his final slide. Competitive analysis showing Henderson and Associates losing market share to more diverse agencies. You're hemorrhaging clients to competitors who understand that authentic marketing requires authentic voices. Your traditional presentation styles are becoming obsolete while you cling to prejudices disguised as business strategy. The room erupted. Walter slammed his hand on the table. I will not sit here and be accused of prejudice by someone who's been here less than a week. Then you won't have to sit here much longer, Logan replied calmly. Because I'm implementing immediate changes to our advancement policies, starting with reversing the decision to demote Kayla Thompson. Like hell you are, Rebecca snapped, her composure finally cracking completely. The board has final authority over personnel decisions, and we will not be manipulated by your obvious conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. Everyone knows you're married to her, Walter said, his voice dripping with disdain. This entire presentation is an elaborate attempt to advance your wife's career at the expense of legitimate business considerations. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Logan felt something fracture inside his chest, the careful control he'd maintained throughout the meeting finally beginning to crack. My wife, he said slowly, has been systematically excluded from opportunities she earned through exceptional work. If recognizing talent is a conflict of interest, then every manager in this company is compromised. Your wife, Carol said with emphasis, was evaluated through the same processes as every other employee. The fact that you disagree with our assessment doesn't make it discriminatory. The fact that your assessment consistently disadvantages people who don't look like you makes it discriminatory, Logan shot back. And the fact that you're more concerned about my conflict of interest than your pattern of exclusion proves exactly how deep this problem goes. Walter stood up, his face now purple with rage. You're fired. The words dropped into the room like a bomb. Everyone froze, the magnitude of what had just happened settling over them like fallout. Excuse me. Logan's voice was dangerously quiet. You heard me. This board hired you, and this board can remove you. Consider your employment terminated effective immediately. Rebecca looked panicked. Walter, we can't just. The hell we can't. He's been here 3 days and he's already trying to destroy everything we've built. I won't stand for it. Logan slowly closed his laptop, his movements deliberate and controlled. This conversation is being recorded. Every discriminatory statement, every admission of preferential treatment based on appearance, every threat of retaliation for challenging illegal practices. I hope your legal team is better than your HR policies. The blood drained from Carol's face. You can't record board meetings without consent. Actually, I can. Illinois is a one-party consent state, and as CEO, I have the authority to record company meetings. Logan gathered his materials with methodical precision. You have 48 hours to reverse the discriminatory personnel decisions we discussed today, or this recording goes to the Illinois Department of Human Rights, along with documented evidence of your pattern of exclusion. You're bluffing, Walter said, but his voice had lost some of its conviction. Try me. Logan headed toward the door, then turned back one final time. By the way, my wife submitted her resignation this morning. She's taking a consulting position with the Patterson Foundation, where her niche skills are valued appropriately. Henderson and Associates just lost the most talented marketer you've ever employed, and you did it on purpose. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. Logan sat in his car in the Henderson and Associates parking garage, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The recording device on his phone showed 47 minutes of conversation that could either destroy his career or save dozens of others. His termination was effective immediately, security would be escorting him out within the hour, and he had just declared war on some of the most powerful people in Chicago's marketing industry. His phone buzzed with a text from Kayla. Submitted my resignation this morning. Patterson Foundation offered me full-time position as creative director starting Monday. How did board meeting go? Logan stared at the message, trying to process the timeline. While he'd been fighting for her career, she'd already moved on to something better. The woman he'd married had never needed him to save her. She'd been saving herself. He typed back, "Call you in an hour. Big developments. Good developments or bad developments?" Logan looked up at the towering glass building where his corporate career had just exploded spectacularly. Life-changing developments. Meanwhile, 3 floors above, the boardroom had descended into barely controlled chaos. Walter Hendricks paced behind his chair like a caged animal, his face still flushed with rage. Rebecca Chen sat frozen at the table, staring at her phone as if it might provide answers to questions she didn't want to ask. "This is a disaster," Carol Brennan muttered, frantically typing notes on her laptop. If he actually recorded that conversation, we're looking at potential lawsuits, federal investigations, media exposure. He's bluffing, Walter insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Nobody records their first board meeting as CEO. It's corporate suicide. Patricia Delacroix, the external consultant, had gone pale. Did anyone else notice that he knew specific details about employee advancement patterns? Performance metrics, client feedback scores, exact language from personnel reviews? He's been building a case. Rebecca finally looked up from her phone. I just received 3 emails from department heads asking about rumors of Logan's termination. Word is already spreading. Let it spread, Walter snapped. We'll frame it as a personnel decision based on performance concerns. His obvious bias regarding his wife's career made him unsuitable for executive leadership. That narrative won't hold up if he releases that recording, Carol warned. We said things. We used language that could be interpreted as discriminatory. Interpreted? Robert Hayes laughed bitterly. Carol, we explicitly discussed excluding employees based on appearance and client comfort levels. There's no interpretation required. The room fell silent as the weight of their exposed position settled over them. 40 years of careful corporate language had crumbled in one meeting, leaving them legally vulnerable and ethically indefensible. Rebecca's phone rang, startling everyone. She glanced at the caller ID and her face went even paler. "It's Jonathan Hartwell from Hartwell Industries. Our biggest client." Walter gestured for her to answer. Rebecca put the phone on speaker. "Rebecca, good morning. I hope you can clarify something for me. I just received a very interesting call from Marcus Patterson at the Patterson Foundation." Rebecca's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. "What kind of call, Jonathan?" "He wanted to thank me for recommending Henderson and Associates for their campaign work. Apparently, one of your employees, Kayla Thompson, created something extraordinary for them. He's so impressed he's planning to recommend your agency to several other foundations in his network." Walter and Rebecca exchanged panicked glances. They'd just spent 47 minutes explaining why Kayla Thompson wasn't suitable for client-facing work, while one of their most important clients was praising her effectiveness. "The interesting part," Jonathan continued, "is that Patterson mentioned wanting to work exclusively with Ms. Thompson on future projects. He said she understood their mission in a way your previous account teams never did. I'm curious why we haven't seen her work on any of our Hartwell campaigns." Rebecca's mouth opened and closed silently. How do you explain that they'd been systematically excluding an employee who was generating client referrals and industry buzz? "We've been utilizing Ms. Thompson's skills in specialized markets," Rebecca managed. "Specialized markets." Jonathan's tone sharpened. "Rebecca, the Patterson Foundation serves the same communities we're trying to reach with our urban market expansion. If you have someone who's already proven effective in that demographic, why isn't she leading our diversity initiative campaign?" The irony was suffocating. While they'd been dismissing Kayla's work as niche, their clients were recognizing its broader applicability and commercial value. "I'll have to get back to you on specific personnel assignments," Rebecca said weakly. "Please do." "And Rebecca, Marcus Patterson mentioned that Ms. Thompson is considering leaving your agency for a position with his foundation. I'd hate to see Hartwell Industries lose access to that kind of talent because of internal politics." The line went dead. 6 board members stared at each other across the mahogany table, the magnitude of their strategic error becoming impossible to ignore. "Jesus Christ," Robert muttered. "We just lost our most effective marketer and potentially our biggest client in the same morning." Walter was still pacing, but his movements had become mechanical, desperate. "We can fix this. Offer her a counter-proposal. Promotion, salary increase, whatever it takes to keep her." "She already resigned," Carol pointed out. "And her husband just recorded us explaining why we considered her unsuitable for advancement. What exactly are we going to say? Sorry we discriminated against you, but now that our client likes your work, we've changed our minds." Patricia Delacroix closed her portfolio with a decisive snap. "I'm terminating my consulting contract with Henderson and Associates effective immediately. I won't be associated with this situation when it becomes public." "When it becomes public?" Rebecca's voice cracked slightly. "Rebecca, wake up. We just fired the CEO for challenging discriminatory practices while his wife was generating positive client feedback for the exact work we were devaluing. This story will be in the Chicago Tribune by Friday." Meanwhile, Logan had made his way to Millennium Park, needing space and air and perspective before his next decision. The November wind whipped off Lake Michigan, cutting through his suit jacket, but the cold felt cleansing after the suffocating corporate atmosphere he'd just escaped. His phone rang. The caller ID showed David Kim, his former boss from his consulting days and one of the few people in Chicago's business community he trusted completely. "Logan, I just heard the most interesting rumor. Please tell me you didn't actually get fired from Henderson and Associates after 3 days. Depends on how you define fired. I'd say it was more of a philosophical disagreement about employment law. David's laugh carried a mixture of amusement and concern. What the hell happened? Logan gave him the abbreviated version: discriminatory advancement patterns, his wife's situation, the board meeting confrontation, his termination for challenging illegal practices. You recorded it? David's voice carried professional admiration mixed with personal worry. Logan, that's either brilliant or career suicide. Maybe both. What's your next move? Logan looked out over the lake, its gray waters reflecting the overcast sky. I'm not sure. I could release the recording, file complaints with state agencies, make enough noise to force changes. But that would probably destroy any chance I have of working in corporate marketing again. Or you could walk away. Keep the recording as insurance, take another consulting position, let someone else fight these battles. While knowing that people like Nicole Chan and Marcus Williams are still trapped in that system. People you barely knew 3 days ago. People whose talent is being wasted because of prejudice disguised as business strategy. David was quiet for a moment. This is about more than your wife's career, isn't it? It was never just about Kayla. She's already building something better for herself. This is about whether I'm the kind of person who walks away from injustice when fighting it becomes inconvenient. Fighting it could cost you everything. So could living with myself if I don't. Logan's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was local. David, I need to take this. I'll call you back. Mr. Mitchell? This is Angela Rodriguez from the Patterson Foundation. We met your wife yesterday for lunch. Of course. Kayla mentioned you. Congratulations on securing her services. Angela's laugh was warm. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Kayla mentioned that you're between positions right now, and we're expanding our programs faster than anticipated. We could use someone with your strategic background to help develop our organizational growth plan. Logan felt something shift in his chest, a possibility he hadn't considered. What kind of position? Executive Director of Strategic Development. You'd work closely with Kayla on campaign integration, but your primary focus would be operational scaling and partnership development. The salary is competitive, the work is meaningful, and you'd be helping build something genuinely impactful. Can I ask why you're interested in someone with my background? Because Kayla told us about your consulting work, your commitment to ethical business practices, and your belief that effective organizations require diverse perspectives. Also, Marcus Patterson was impressed by your reputation in the non-profit consulting space. Logan realized he was holding his breath. When would you need an answer? No rush. Think it over. Discuss it with Kayla. We're just excited about the possibility of working with both of you. After ending the call, Logan sat on a park bench overlooking the lake, pieces of a new life arranging themselves in his mind. He could take the Patterson Foundation position, build something meaningful with his wife, leave the corporate world and its compromises behind. It would mean walking away from the fight at Henderson and Associates, letting other talented people navigate the discrimination he'd exposed. Or he could use his recording to force systemic change, knowing it would probably end his corporate career but potentially opening doors for dozens of others. His phone buzzed with a text from Kayla. Whatever happened in that meeting, I love you. We'll figure out whatever comes next together. Logan smiled for the first time all day. She was right. Whatever choice he made, they'd face the consequences together. The question was whether he wanted to be the man who took the safe path or the one who fought for something bigger than his own career. The answer was becoming clearer with every passing minute. The Chicago Tribune's business section hit newsstands across the city with a headline that made coffee shops and corporate boardrooms fall silent. Henderson and Associates CEO fired after exposing systematic workplace discrimination. The article, written by investigative reporter Jennifer Walsh, included excerpts from Logan's recording that made uncomfortable reading for anyone familiar with corporate coded language. Market research shows that certain demographics respond better to representatives who reflect aspirational qualities. Board member Robert Hayes can be heard saying in the recording. When pressed for specifics, he clarified, sophistication, refinement, the kind of polish that signals success. The recording reveals a pattern of advancement decisions based on what board members called cultural fit and executive bearing, terms that employment lawyers say often mask discriminatory practices. Kayla sat in the Patterson Foundation's new offices in the West Loop, reading the article on her tablet while her morning coffee grew cold. The office buzzed with energy, 20-something staff members planning community outreach events and designing social media campaigns that would actually reach the people they were meant to serve. After 2 days in this environment, Henderson and Associates felt like a previous lifetime. Heavy reading. Angela Rodriguez settled into the chair across from Kayla's desk, her own copy of the Tribune folded to the business section. Surreal reading. That's my husband quoted in the second paragraph. Kayla set down the tablet and rubbed her temples. Part of me feels vindicated. Part of me feels like we just burned down half of Chicago's marketing industry. The half that needed burning, Angela said matter-of-factly. Kayla, the response to this article has been incredible. I've had 6 other marketing agencies call this morning asking about our campaigns, wanting to understand what authentic community engagement actually looks like. Kayla's eyebrows rose. 6 agencies. And 3 potential clients who read about your work and want to discuss bringing their diversity initiatives to us instead of traditional corporate firms. Angela leaned forward, excitement radiating from her compact frame. This scandal might be the best thing that ever happened to mission-driven marketing in this city. Meanwhile, 15 miles north at Henderson and Associates, the atmosphere was toxic. The Tribune article had triggered a cascade of consequences that was still gathering momentum. By 8 a.m., for clients had called emergency meetings to discuss their marketing partnerships. By 9 a.m., 3 employees had submitted resignations. By 10 a.m., the Illinois Department of Human Rights had announced they were opening an investigation into the company's employment practices. Walter Hendricks sat in his corner office, staring at his phone as it rang continuously with calls from reporters, lawyers, and very angry board members. The law firm representing Henderson and Associates had recommended a strategy of damage control and public apology, but Walter's instinct was to fight back against what he saw as a coordinated attack on traditional business practices. Rebecca Chen knocked on his office door, her usual composure replaced by barely controlled panic. "Walter, we need to talk. If it's about the Tribune article, I've already spoken to our legal team. It's about the Hartwell Industries contract. Jonathan Hartwell just called. They're suspending their account pending resolution of the discrimination allegations." Walter's face went ashen. Hartwell Industries represented 30% of Henderson and Associates' annual revenue. Losing them would mean layoffs, budget cuts, and potentially bankruptcy. "He can't do that. We have a contract." A contract that includes clauses about maintaining professional standards and ethical business practices. Rebecca sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "Walter, he specifically mentioned that they'd requested diverse representation for their urban market campaigns, and we'd consistently provided teams that didn't reflect the communities they were trying to reach. We provided teams based on proven effectiveness. Based on what we thought would make clients comfortable. Turns out, clients actually wanted authentic representation, and we were too stuck in our own assumptions to provide it." The irony was devastating. While Henderson and Associates had been protecting clients from diversity, Those same clients had been seeking the authentic perspectives the company was systematically excluding. Walter's desk phone rang. His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Hendricks? There's a Nicole Chen here to see you. She says it's urgent." Rebecca and Walter exchanged glances. Nicole Chen, the graphic designer who'd been scheduled for demotion to print production, was probably coming to gloat or demand an apology. "Send her in." Nicole entered wearing a bright yellow dress that made her look like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. Instead of the nervous energy she displayed in previous meetings, she radiated quiet confidence. "Nicole," Walter began, "I assume you're here about the recent developments." "Actually, I'm here to give you an opportunity." Nicole set a portfolio on his desk. "I've been contacted by 4 different agencies since the Tribune article came out. They've seen my work and they're interested in what I bring to campaign development." Walter opened the portfolio, revealing innovative designs that showcased exactly the kind of creative thinking Henderson and Associates claimed to value. "This is impressive work. It's the same work you called too experimental 2 weeks ago. The same concepts Tom Walsh said were unsuitable for your core clientele." Nicole's voice carried no anger, just factual clarity. "I'm giving you one chance to make a competitive counteroffer before I accept a position elsewhere." "What kind of counteroffer?" "Creative director position. Full authority over campaign development. Salary commensurate with my actual contributions to this company's success." Nicole paused, studying Walter's face. "And a public statement clarifying that my previous evaluations were inaccurate and discriminatory." The silence stretched between them. Walter was clearly calculating costs, legal liability, public admission of wrongdoing, the precedent it would set for other employees who'd been similarly undervalued. "I'll need to discuss this with the board." "You have until Monday morning. After that, I'm accepting the creative director position at Breakthrough Marketing." Nicole closed her portfolio and headed toward the door. "Oh, and Walter? Marcus Williams is meeting with 3 different agencies this week. You might want to consider a similar conversation with him." After Nicole left, Rebecca stared at the closed door. "She's right, you know. About the evaluations, about our assumptions, about everything. She's one person. She's one talented person we're about to lose because we couldn't see past our own biases. How many others have we lost over the years? How much innovation have we stifled because it didn't fit our narrow definition of appropriate?" Walter didn't answer, but Rebecca could see him processing the mathematics of talent retention versus stubborn pride. Across town, Logan was having lunch with David Kim at a quiet restaurant in Bucktown, discussing the aftermath of his very public corporate explosion. "The job offers have been interesting," Logan said, cutting into his salmon. 3 consulting firms, 2 non-profit organizations, and one very intriguing startup that wants to build what they're calling ethical marketing for the digital age. "And the Patterson Foundation offer?" "Still on the table. Kayla loves working there, and they're growing fast enough to need serious strategic development." Logan paused, considering his words. It would mean building something entirely new instead of trying to reform existing systems. Sometimes building new is more effective than reforming old. Sometimes. But the recording is still out there, still making waves. "Nicole Chen called this morning to thank me. Apparently, she's been offered creative director positions at 4 different agencies since the story broke." David smiled. "Sounds like your corporate sacrifice is having ripple effects." "That's what Kayla said. She thinks the real victory isn't changing Henderson and Associates. It's proving that there are better alternatives available." Logan's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Marcus Williams from Henderson and Associates. I wanted to thank you for what you did. Because of your courage, I just accepted a senior account director position at a firm that actually values my client relationships. You changed my life. Similar messages had been arriving all week. Employees who'd been trapped in dead-end positions, talented people who'd been made to feel inadequate, professionals who'd started questioning their own worth because of systematic exclusion. The Tribune article had given them language for experiences they'd struggled to articulate and courage to demand better treatment. I think I've made my decision about the Patterson Foundation, Logan said. Good fit. Perfect fit. Kayla and I get to work together without the complications of corporate hierarchy. I get to help build an organization that's actually making a difference in communities that need it. And we both get to prove that authentic marketing isn't niche marketing, it's just better marketing. That evening, Logan and Kayla sat on their couch, takeout containers scattered across the coffee table, reading responses to the Tribune article on social media. The comments ranged from supportive to hostile, but the overall message was clear. Chicago's business community was having a long overdue conversation about workplace discrimination and the real cost of exclusion. Listen to this one, Kayla said, scrolling through LinkedIn posts. Sarah Martinez, marketing director at Tech Innovations. The Henderson and Associates story forced me to examine my own company's advancement patterns. We're implementing immediate changes to ensure performance evaluations focus on actual performance, not cultural fit. Here's another one, Logan added, reading from his tablet. David Park, CEO of Urban Development Solutions. We've hired 2 former Henderson and Associates employees this week. Their talent was clearly being wasted. Our competitor's loss is definitely our gain. Kayla set down her phone and curled up against Logan's side. Do you ever regret it? Walking away from the CEO position, burning bridges with the corporate establishment. Logan considered the question seriously. 3 weeks ago, being CEO of Henderson and Associates had represented the pinnacle of his professional ambitions. Tonight, it felt like a bullet dodged. I regret that it took me 3 days to see what you'd been living with for 2 years. I regret that other people are still trapped in systems like that. Logan's arm tightened around her. But I don't regret choosing justice over politics, or choosing us over corporate advancement. Even if it means we're both starting over professionally? We're not starting over. We're starting better. Kayla's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at it and smiled. Marcus Patterson just sent me the preliminary results from our first expanded campaign. Engagement is up 40% from their previous marketing efforts. See. Better. 6 months later, the Patterson Foundation had grown from a small community organization to a regional force for social change, with Kayla as creative director and Logan as executive director of strategic development. Their campaigns were being studied by marketing programs at Northwestern and University of Chicago as examples of authentic community engagement. Henderson and Associates had survived the scandal, but barely. Walter Hendricks had resigned under pressure, Rebecca Chen had implemented sweeping changes to personnel policies, and the company was slowly rebuilding its reputation under new leadership that understood the connection between diversity and innovation. Nicole Chen was thriving as creative director at Breakthrough Marketing, leading campaigns that showcased exactly the kind of creative thinking Henderson and Associates had dismissed as too experimental. Marcus Williams had become a senior partner at his new firm, his client relationships proving just as valuable as Logan had insisted they were. On a warm May evening, Kayla and Logan attended a fundraiser for the Patterson Foundation's new Youth Entrepreneur Program. The event was held at the Chicago History Museum, surrounded by exhibits celebrating the city's diverse cultural heritage. Young people from across Chicago's neighborhoods mingled with business leaders, nonprofit directors, and community organizers, all connected by belief in the power of authentic opportunity. Remember when you thought love couldn't win in corporate boardrooms? Logan asked, watching Kayla explain their latest campaign to a group of impressed foundation executives. I was wrong about that, she replied, straightening his tie with the casual intimacy of 3 years of marriage. Love didn't win in that boardroom. It built a better boardroom. Metaphorically speaking. The best kind of speaking. Marcus Patterson approached them, his face glowing with the satisfaction of someone whose life's work was finally receiving the recognition it deserved. Kayla, Logan, I wanted you to meet someone. This is Jennifer Walsh from the Tribune, the reporter who wrote the story about Henderson and Associates. Jennifer shook their hands warmly. I wanted to thank you both. That story has been cited in discrimination lawsuits across 3 states. Your courage to go on record started a conversation that was long overdue. Our courage got us fired, Logan said with a laugh. And led us to work that actually matters, Kayla added. Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to your career. As the evening wound down, Kayla and Logan walked hand in hand through Lincoln Park, the same neighborhood where they'd built their life together. The trees were full of spring blossoms, the air warm with possibility. Any regrets? Logan asked, the same question they'd posed to each other 6 months earlier. About leaving Henderson and Associates? About the Tribune article? About building something new instead of trying to fix something broken? Kayla stopped walking and turned to face him. My only regret is that it took a crisis to show us how much stronger we are when we fight for our values instead of just our careers. Logan pulled her close, kissing her under the streetlights that illuminated their neighborhood like stars. Around them, Chicago hummed with the energy of 8 million people pursuing their own versions of justice, love, and meaningful work. They'd learned that sometimes the most important victories happen when you stop trying to fit into systems that were never designed to include you and start building systems that work better for everyone. Love hadn't conquered the corporate world, but it had given them the courage to create something worth conquering it for. I love you, Mrs. Mitchell. I love you too, Mr. Executive Director of Strategic Development. That's quite a title. You've earned it. We both have. As they walked toward home, their future stretched ahead like an unwritten campaign, full of authentic stories waiting to be told and communities waiting to be served. They discovered that the most powerful marketing message wasn't about selling products or services, but about selling hope, justice, and the radical idea that everyone deserves to be seen, valued, and heard. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.